Hey guys! Today I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me and some friends a few years ago. We were in a mood to explore abandoned places, you know? There was an old house on the dirt road near the city. Everyone said it was haunted, but we thought it was just scared people's talk. It was a Friday night, of course, and we decided it would be a good idea to go there. We grabbed flashlights, cameras, and some drinks because why not, right? When we arrived, the house looked even scarier than we had imagined. It was all falling apart, with broken windows and a rusty gate that creaked eerily when we pushed it open. We went inside, laughing and joking, as if nothing could scare us. The floor creaked under our feet, and the air was cold, even though it was a warm night. We started exploring the rooms, taking pictures and making silly jokes about ghosts and spirits. That's when we started hearing the noises. At first, they were just whispers. We thought it was the wind passing through the cracks, but the whispers started to get louder, almost like someone was talking to us. Pedro, the bravest of the group, shouted, "Who's there?" And to our surprise, the whispers stopped. We laughed, thinking he had scared the ghost, but then a door slammed shut upstairs. The sound echoed through the house, and we all went silent. We decided to go up to see what had happened. Each step creaked as if it was about to give way, and the darkness seemed to swallow us. When we got to the top floor, we found a long hallway with several doors. The door that had slammed shut was at the end of the hallway. We walked slowly, trying not to make noise, and when we got there, Pedro kicked the door open, just to show off. The room was empty, but the window was open, letting in a cold wind. That's when we saw it. On the floor, there was a strange symbol drawn in chalk. It looked like something from a ritual, really sinister. Before we could do anything, the door closed behind us, locking us inside. We tried to open the door, but it seemed locked from the outside. Panic started to set in. That's when we heard footsteps. They definitely weren't ours. Heavy footsteps approaching. We started shouting for help, but it seemed like no one could hear us. Suddenly, the flashlight beams began to flicker, and in the corner of the room, a figure began to form. It was a tall shadow with glowing eyes staring at us. We felt the air grow heavier, as if something was suffocating us. Pedro, always the brave one, tried to confront the shadow, but he was thrown against the wall by an invisible force. The shadow advanced, and we felt a piercing cold. Just when it seemed like we were about to faint from fear, the door suddenly opened, and the shadow disappeared. We ran out without looking back. We just wanted to get out of that cursed house. When we were finally outside, panting and sweaty, we realized the house was completely dark, as if we had never been inside with our flashlights on. We went home in silence, each of us trying to understand what had happened. We never went back there, and whenever someone mentions the abandoned house on the dirt road, we changed the subject. To this day, we don't know what that shadow was or why it let us go, but one thing is certain. There are places better left undisturbed. We thought that night at the abandoned house was the end of our eerie adventures, but we were very wrong. The shadow of that experience followed us, and it didn't take long for strange things to start happening. First, it was Pedro. He began having nightmares, always with the same shadow with glowing eyes. In the first nights, he woke up sweaty and screaming, thinking it was just the trauma of that night. But the nightmares didn't stop. In fact, they became more intense and real. He woke up with scratch marks on his body that he swore he didn't make. Then it was Camila's turn. She started hearing whispers, even when she was alone at home. The whispers said her name and other words she couldn't understand. She became so scared that she started avoiding going out. Even so, the whispers continued, as if they were in her head. Marcos, who was always the most skeptical, began seeing shadows out of the corner of his eyes. At first, he thought it was just his mind playing tricks, but the shadows became more distinct and closer. One night, he saw the same figure with glowing eyes that we had encountered in the house. Terrified him completely. I wasn't spared either. One night, I was home alone, editing some of the photos we took at the house. That's when I noticed something strange in one of the images. In the background, in one of the broken windows, you could clearly see the figure of a pale woman with dark eyes and a macabre smile. It wasn't anyone from our group, and I knew we had been alone there that night. I decided to investigate a bit more about the house. I asked the older residents of the town, and they told me a story that chilled me to the bone. Many years ago, a woman named Isabella lived in that house with her husband. They were known for practicing strange and dark rituals. One night, there was a mysterious fire, and the couple was never seen again. Since then, the house had been avoided by everyone because it was said that vengeful spirits still roamed there. With this information, I gathered the group. We decided we needed to do something to end these supernatural events. We researched banishment and protection rituals and prepared to return to the abandoned house one last time. We arrived at dusk, and the air seemed heavier than last time. We had candles, salt, and a book with instructions for the ritual. We started by drawing a circle of protection on the floor and lighting the candles around it. As Marcos read the words of the ritual, we felt the temperature drop drastically. The candles flickered, and the whispers began again, louder and more desperate. The shadowy figure appeared again, but this time it wasn't alone. Several other shadows emerged, all with glowing eyes and expressions of pure hatred. We continued the ritual despite our fear. The shadows advanced, and it felt like the air around us was becoming denser and harder to breathe. Suddenly, the candles went out, and we were in complete darkness. We felt invisible hands touching us, pulling us out of the circle. Pedro, with renewed courage, began shouting the words of the ritual more forcefully, and the shadows retreated a bit. We followed his lead and all shouted together with all our will. The shadows began to dissipate, and the feeling of suffocation diminished. When we finished the ritual, the shadows had completely disappeared. The house was silent, and the air seemed lighter. We left as quickly as possible without looking back. Since that night, the nightmares, whispers, and visions have stopped. But we were never the same. We learned that there are things we shouldn't mess with, and places that should be left alone. The house on the dirt road is still there, abandoned, and whenever we pass by, we make a point of avoiding looking at it. Who knows what else might be waiting for those who dare to enter? Even after performing the ritual, the experience in the abandoned house left deep marks on all of us. Although the supernatural events ceased, the fear lingered, silent but constant, like a shadow that refuses to disappear completely. Pedro, who had always been the bravest, became more reserved. He didn't talk much about that night, but we all knew he still carried the invisible scars from the encounter with the shadows. Camila, for her part, began studying more about the paranormal. I think trying to understand what happened was her way of dealing with the trauma. Marcos, the skeptic, moved to another city. He said it was because of a new job, but we all knew the truth. He couldn't live so close to that place anymore. As for me, I started channeling my experiences into horror stories, sharing them online with people who, like us, were drawn to the unknown. Months passed, and eventually years. Life went on, but the house on the dirt road was never forgotten. Whenever we gathered, that event would come up in our conversations. It was like a kind of collective memory, a warning of what could happen when you mess with forces you don't fully understand. Once, I gathered the courage to pass by the house, just to see if it was still there. It remained imposing and sinister, with broken windows and a decaying structure. The rusty gate still creaked with the wind, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I decided that would be as close as I would get to that house again. I left the house to the ghosts of the past and moved on with my life, always remembering the lessons learned. There are places and secrets that should remain untouched, and the house on the dirt road is, without a doubt, one of those places. So, guys, here's the warning. If a place has a dark history, maybe it's best not to investigate. Sometimes, curiosity can lead us to discover things that are better left in the dark. And we don't always have the luck to walk away unscathed. Thank you for watching another Dark Tales video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any scary stories. See you next time, and beware of the dark.